Good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 12th of September 2017, and a good evening to you. I hope you're all doing well. And well, we need to talk about the appalling state of education in this country. Okay, there was been several articles lately about the big panic. They need to overhaul the education system because the test grades are falling for students, and so now they have to try and figure out. Education Minister defends program after EQAO scores show half of students in grade 6 failed to meet provincial standards for a second year in a row. Curriculum overhaul. And so they give a little example of the questions that they asked there. Now I've calculated that out. It took me about 10 seconds. It's simple mental arithmetic. Each box drops by an equal number, so to decide what the value of the first box will be and the value of the last box will be is just a matter of sequence. And over here, right, this little piece right here, okay, it shows you how to answer the question. And you can't put a cross in the circle, you can't put a dot, you have to completely black out the circle and not go outside the lines. And you know, the reason for this is that the teacher doesn't even mark the exams. Okay, I don't know whether they've mechanized this, but what it used to be is that they would put an answer sheet over the multiple choice question sheet, and there were holes in that sheet where the correct answers were, and so you would be able to clearly see the black dot or the black hole completely filled in. Okay, so even the teachers have become disconnected from how they teach math in schools today. And so here's another article. The way we teach math isn't adding up. Thankfully, at the bottom here, a professor of teaching is saying that we need to get back to basics. And I find it interesting, the little bit that I pinked out there is a teacher who says, he's a grade 5 teacher in Brantford, Ontario, said, "The curriculum is not the issue, there is a mismatch, he said, between the test and how children are learning in the classroom." Well, let me tell you, buddy, this is simple, basic math. Okay, parents have been noticing a steady decline in the children's ability to do simple math, reading and writing, and this kind of stuff, just basic classroom skills for years now. I remember before I came to Balcagian here, my daughter was going to school in Orangeville, and they had just introduced the Recognize a Word program. No more teaching in phonics. No, that was too old-fashioned. Just look at a word and try and say it from recognition or from remembrance. Or if you couldn't do that, just have a bash. Okay, have a try at it. I mean, I cannot believe how backward thinking we are in education in allowing this nonsense to carry on. Okay, I had a particular instance with my two boys when they were going to grade school. Okay, and they didn't know their times tables, and so I decided to teach them the old-fashioned way, and so we just started reciting our times tables. You know, 1's 2 is 2, 2's are 4, and it's sort of like a drone, and you go right the way through to 12. 12 times 12 is 144. And oh my God, you would have thought that you were pulling teeth, that I was inflicting more pain than an electric shock. They were in agony, and it took about 2 or 3 months, but they finally did learn their times tables by memory. And so I wrote a letter to the principal, and I said, well, why don't you just do this in the morning? Okay, when you first get into class, the teacher does the times tables by rote, and then you ask a few mental arithmetic questions like what is 4 4s, 5 8s, 6 3s, and do it kind of quick fire is how we used to do it. And by golly, I don't know whether you can do this today, but if you didn't get the answer right, you were standing on your chair for 5 minutes in front of the whole class, and that was a pretty good incentive. Trust me, with all the girls watching you standing on your chair like a complete twit. Anyways, I got this really snotty letter back from the principal saying that, well, you know, in modern pedagogy we have learned that every child learns at different speeds and has different abilities, so, you know, we choose individual styles to teach individual children. And so I flipped off a reply and said, well, Bill, you know, if that's the case, how come my kids don't know their times tables, or any of my friends' kids know their times tables? Yes, you gave them a little piece of paper with a 12 by 12 grid on it, and they filled in up to 144, but that is not learning your times tables. And to expect children to learn this at home is abdicating your responsibility when it only takes 5 minutes of class time in the morning to zero everyone in, recite your times tables, and get it down pat. As this professor said, if children haven't got their times tables memorized by grade 4, they will struggle for the rest of their school career in math. Okay, I am 64 and I still use my times tables every day of the week. All of your basic, you know, grade 8 math stuff I use every day. Addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, fractions, times tables. You go to a store, you want to buy something, you have to decide what the unit price is. You know, this is simple division and addition. All of these things will stand you in great stead for the rest of your life. I find it also staggering that as we all know what is going on, why nobody has said anything, why nobody has listened. And this is another example of how insular government is. Oh no, the parents don't know what's best for their children, we do. And so we're going to change curriculum as we see fit. Okay, now a lot of this, you know, I was thinking of a good example to give as to how in a particular situation we would immediately realize the folly of training in this way, and it came to mind music lessons. Okay, I don't think that you are going to meet a music teacher anywhere in the world, okay, who is going to take a child who is starting to learn how to play the piano and try and teach them a concerto and to appreciate the value of each emotional quotient of each note that is played in that concerto, to work from a point of imagination. Absolutely not. You need to learn your scales. You need to run up and down those scales on a guitar or a piano. You need to practice and train those fingers. And any person who thinks that they can pick up a musical instrument and just start playing and make any meaningful sound on that instrument is absolutely kidding themselves, okay? As a guitar player myself, I know the amount of effort that it takes to learn how to play a musical instrument, and you're not going to do that without the basics. Trust me, you might be able to play a few chords, but you will never really master that instrument unless you learn the basic scales and notes and how those scales go together and work with each other, minor scales, all of this kind of stuff. Okay, and another example that I thought of, because I had a particular gentleman coming in my store for a haircut, and his name was Winnett Boyd, and he's part of the famous Boyd family, who were lumber barons in this area during the 18 and very early 1900s. And Winnett Boyd was absolutely brilliant. He was definitely a different kind of person, and he did not suffer fools gladly. And I think he only suffered me in part because you know, he needed a haircut. Anyway, Winnett Boyd was the designer of the jet engines for the Avro Arrow. okay, which is just at this moment being heaved up from Lake Ontario to make to restore it to perfect condition. The last ones were flown into the lake. So anyway, when at Boyd, he designed these engines. You know where he got his education? In a one-room schoolhouse. And do you know why those educations were so great in those one-room schoolhouses? Because firstly, they knew that intelligence will out. An intelligent person will not be held down. Intelligence will always out. The cream will always rise to the top, because intelligent people are usually extremely energetic as well. Okay, so what these one-room schoolhouses did was focused on giving children the basics. The basics in the 3 R's: reading, writing and arithmetic. Okay, and then to compound that learning, once you got up to be about grade 4, like the teacher spent most of the time with the grades 1, 2s and 3s, but once you start getting into grade 4 and grade 5, you started helping the younger kids with their studies. So you were not only learning your stuff, but you were reinforcing your earlier learning. And this was so important. This is critical. You know, I heard this thing about Paul McCartney. And actually there's a couple of things about Paul McCartney which is interesting, but about his genius in music. And so it takes 10,000 hours of playing to put you in genius territory. Okay, that doesn't mean to say you're going to be a genius, but that is your foundation. You have to have 10,000 hours of musical playing experience just to give you the skills to step into the genius range of music. And interesting enough, when John Lennon and Paul McCartney were at school, their musical talent was not recognized at all with a music teacher. She was interviewed in biographies done about John Lennon and Paul McCartney, and she said, yeah, I recall nothing exceptional about these two boys as far as music was concerned. They were just pretty middle C kind of average kids. So there you go. There's a good example of schools missing out on noticing what is real talent right under their noses. Now this was an interesting article. Okay, so this chap here is Sir Kenneth Robertson, and he is a British author and education guru, and he was in Montreal on Thursday to attend the Einstein Youth Forum. And he says Canada's education system must fundamentally change to raise academic success. There you go. Good on you, Sir Ken. And how schools are stifling students' creativity. And he says, it bothers me that politicians or administrators look at these raw figures across the massive education system and say math scores are going down. What do? Let's grind out more math exercises. And the system itself is what's creating the problem. Fathom the trend before you start making the prescription. Work out what's going on. Speak to the kids. Talk to the math teachers. Talk to the school. And, what a novel idea, talk to the parents. Okay, let's include everybody in this discussion. And of course what he's talking about is that there are all kinds of artistic endeavours that have now been cut from the school curriculum that actually enhance learning in math, writing and reading, one of which is dance, exercise. You know, in China, for example, you know, children do Tai Chi in the middle of classes. There'll be a break in the middle of a class and they'll do some Tai Chi exercises to get the blood circulating and to, you know, give their heads a break from what they're thinking about, and to get the oxygen circulating again. You know, when I was a kid, we were often sent out to play in the middle of a class. Just run around the playground, come back in and sit down. Because we were young, we were active, we were bursting with energy. So I think that the Ontario government needs to get with the program. Okay, they need to stop thinking of schools as factories and factory fodder. Okay, you know, where else do you line up to a bell and certain classes, and where are you batched by the year in which you came out of that school. This is like getting these kids ready to go work in a factory. Now, also over the years, I've had several students come in from the Lakefield College School. And Lakefield College is where Prince Andrew went to school. And it's in Lakefield, of course, which is not very far from here. And so when I've talked to these students about what kind of things they do whilst they're in class, one of the big standouts is these kids are making presentations either to the entire school or to the class at least once a week. Okay, they have to prepare a coherent presentation about a study that they've done, a particular talk on a hobby or something like that. I understand that they also are expected by the end of the term to have written a play or put a band together and written a piece of music that they can perform to the entire school. So they're being trained from the get-go to stand up and perform and speak in public. This is the exact opposite of what we do in our public schools. You know, you might once a year have to give a presentation to the class, and I can tell you every student dreads that day. I wonder where society would be today if, growing up, the adults, the working class adults, could present an idea coherently to fellow workers, to friends. I wonder what groups might have been organised. I wonder what good might have been done if people knew how to speak about what they were feeling and thinking in public in a coherent and understandable manner without fear. And you see this all the time. You see when a member of the public has to present something, how often their head is down, they're talking into their boots, they're mumbling, they're not breathing properly, all kinds of, and this is why we have things like Toastmasters, you know, so that people who are working can actually learn how to present to their colleagues, to present ideas, initiatives, PowerPoints, and this kind of stuff. Okay, so this is sadly lacking in our schools. I think that we need to get back to the basics. We need to stop trying to teach our kids to dream about things before we give them the tools to bring those dreams into reality. And you know what? Kids at this age, they're dreamers anyway. Give them some imagination time. Just let them go do it. The kids naturally want to imagine all kinds of things. And you give these children free time to go think about this kind of stuff. So just some free time activity where they can choose what they want to do. Okay, give them a little bit more autonomy. But at the same time, you know, show them some of the discipline of education, which is actually sitting down and doing that boring, old learning by rote, because really there is no better way. Now, I've done an awful lot of memory work in my life, and I mean serious memory work where I've had to memorize whole speeches. Okay, songs as a musician, memorizing songs. And when you memorize something, you change your mind. You change the way that your mind actually processes information. I can't explain what it is, but it is beneficial to memorize things, to make your mind memorize things. And so I'm going to let you into just a little secret, my memorization secret, and maybe I'll make a separate video of this too. But when I was learning songs, of course I'd have the book open in front of me, and I would read through the song as I was playing, and then I'd close the book, and of course I'd get stuck. And of course when the book opens, you immediately fall back onto the book. You rely on the book. So the only way that I found out to successfully memorize, and this was told to me by an old friend, is you memorize the first line. Today we're going to go to work. Okay, close the book. Today we're going to go to work. Second line. We're going to catch the bus to go to work. Today we're going to go to work We're going to catch the bus to go to work. And you keep adding line by line until you can do that without the book being open. And then you recite it over and over and over again until it is word perfect, until there are no slips, there are no mispronunciations, and you will have that locked in your memory. That's the only way that I found that works. Anything else, having things open in front of you, you maybe use like a memory jogger, okay, where you write out points, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 or whatever it is, and you have talk about my early life, move on to whatever it is that you're doing. Just list out one sentence which is going to keep you on track. But other than that, no, the schools, the education that we have today in Canada is a disgrace. Considering we are a first world country, it's an absolute disgrace. A recent StatsCan survey basically said that 50% of university students, 50%, half of them, could not read and write well enough to understand the curriculum, and at least 50% of university students couldn't do simple grade 10 arithmetic. This is our best and brightest going on to run the country, run the world, create, invent, whatever, struggling with reading and writing and arithmetic at university level. How are they ever going to grasp some of the concepts, some of the nuances that you have to at university? I don't know, I shake my head. We've taken the wrong fork down the road, and nobody seems to want to speak up about it, and for fear of offending somebody. Well, I'm speaking up about it. It's a disgrace, and we need to look at it in a different way, in a different light, and we need to be focusing on these basics. In some ways we do need to go back in time, get that foundation back, and then that is a springboard for our children's future, the children that we are going to depend upon in the future. Anyway, if you've enjoyed this little rant of mine, please like and subscribe below, and click on the little bell by the subscribe, then you won't miss any of the updates to my channel. And please support me through Bitcoin or through PayPal. The links are below, and every little bit helps. And this is Hound Dog Steve signing off, wishing you a great evening.